You tested the sound, right?
Yeah.
All right, you tested the sound. It works, right?
Well, you guys let us
I
know if it
know.
doesn't.
Yeah, hello everybody, and welcome to Geopolitics in Conflict Show. Very excited to be here. How are you, Elizabeth?
I'm doing awesome.
By the way, I'm gonna
Yes.
interrupt you.
Okay.
How is being? I already said married, but engaged. How does it feel?
Actually, it feels wonderful.
Good.
I feel like even though I kind of waited a long time,
It's all right.
I
Everything
found
has its own time.
it does. And my fiance, which is
Yeah.
very exciting to say,
Yeah.
is a wonderful man, and I'm really really happy.
Yeah, he is. I had a conversation with him. I've been
Yeah.
around long enough to know.
Well, and you
no,
seem to
he's
really like him, and he really
yes,
likes
yeah.
you, and that's really
You know
important to
why?
me.
You know why? Because he's real.
He is real.
That's to me. I would know right away. So that's why I
Yeah.
enjoy having conversation with him. So I'm excited. So I just figured I'd ask you a question. How
Yeah.
does it feel like now
It
that you're
feels really
engaged?
good. It
Well,
feels
good.
really good, and I'm very excited to get married.
We'll make sure
Mhm.
some pictures for our viewers of the
Oh, would you
wedding.
guys like pictures?
Yeah. Why not?
We actually have engagement pictures also. Maybe we'll post them.
Yeah,
Maybe we'll post
hey,
them.
it's a community after all. Remember,
Yeah.
it's our community. So
It is.
anyway, we are so excited to be here. I'm
Mm.
excited here. You can tell I'm fired up because I had coffee.
You did.
Well, I had my
can tell
own
that.
coffee. I make my own.
Yeah.
Remember, I add cinnamon, I add turmeric, I add
Mhm.
things to it. It's not your average. So I'm very excited, but I'm also excited about the nature of the topics. What are we talking about
All
today?
right, so we have 3 topics today.
Three?
And we have 3.
Oh my God!
And
Why?
the reason is because there's so much going on in the world right now, and a
Okay.
lot of it has to do with the de-dollarization. So de-dollarization
Oh,
is like
the big one.
It is.
The
It's
big one.
and it's huge because it impacts the rest of the world. This isn't just
For
something that
sure.
impacts
For
the United States. So we have 3 topics. The first topic is 41 countries seem to be willing to accept BRICS new currency
Ooh.
ahead of the summit, which is a really big deal. So we're going to outline what we know about that situation because it is ahead of the summit,
Yes.
and the BRICS currency is now really starting to gain some traction.
Uh-huh.
The second is Janet Yellen, Secretary of the Treasury here in the United States, is going to China. Now, this is a little bit complicated because we have this de-dollarization situation,
Yeah.
which Janet Yellen has. I mean, this is acknowledged now, right? This
Yeah,
isn't, this isn't some
Yeah.
theory or whatever. It's acknowledged. So
Yeah.
she's acknowledged it. So we have this de-dollarization issue,
Mhm.
but she is also trying to take industry out of China. So manufacturing.
Good luck.
Right.
Yeah. You know
Yeah,
why I'm
no.
saying good luck? You know why I'm saying good luck? Because last night, evening for us
Mhm.
here in Washington, it wasn't in Washington, it was in London.
Mhm.
The CIA director gave a talk for a private audience. I had a chance to know, once you know
That's
your
pretty cool.
content. I know.
Yeah.
And you know what I talked about?
What?
Decoupling from China would
Yeah.
be suicide.
Yeah.
But there is no way we can do it
absolutely.
anyway.
Absolutely.
So despite the talk we hear, she's going to take industries out of China?
No.
It's nonsense.
But there's an interesting point that she's talking about it,
Yeah.
right?
Oh,
like
yeah.
it's like the save face.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't trust her anyway.
No, oh my God.
I'm glad you have.
No.
I'm glad you brought this topic because
Yeah.
I know a little bit about.
You
so
do.
I'd be happy
That's
to talk about.
absolutely true.
And what's the third?
The third one is that there is a really interesting turn of events in the Russia Wagner situation. So it turns out that there may actually be a large Wagner encampment in Belarus now.
Oh my God.
Which they swear isn't happening.
Yeah.
But we have some pictures that came out of, the BBC. The BBC posted these pictures that might not be true.
Would you trust BBC?
No. No, I would not.
Well, great. I'm very excited about these topics because funny, I knew of them because, as I read a lot during the week,
Right.
I spend my week just researching things. A lot of people think I'm just sitting around.
I don't think anybody thinks that. There's no way.
But anyway, so that's why when you mention these topics, like, I just read about the updates about this information.
Yeah.
Especially the first and the third one. But the second one is of importance as well. So, well, great. Let's talk about the first one. First of all, I'd like to find out where everybody joining us from, please.
And
yeah, I like that.
A lot of people already put it in there. Oh, thank you guys for the congratulations. I very much appreciate it. I'm really happy and excited.
Good.
Okay, so
I'd like to know where people joining us from.
Let's see. Good morning from Mexico. Davo B is from Mexico. Asarud.
Let me see.
She's from Vietnam. I apologize. Raymond from Vancouver. Alfred from Macau, China. Let's see.
Wow, Macau.
Simon from Antarctica. Is that right?
My God.
Simon, are you in Antarctica? Is that real? Olwethu is from South Africa. Sultan is from Dubai.
Sultan Al Fahim from Dubai. Good
Alice from Perth, Australia. Hey, George in Austin, Texas.
Great to have you. I saw Choi Kohoy has been with us for quite a while. He's from you know where he's from?
Where?
No, Indonesia.
Indonesia.
Or Malaysia, actually. He's always here. Well, good. I'm glad you guys got a chance to join us here. I'm sure there will be more as we Onana from Philippines. You saw that? Yeah. So anyway, let's get on our topic because we got a lot to cover.
We do.
And this first topic, I'm not surprised. And the reason why I'm saying I'm not surprised, there is a record there. One of my videos way back when we talked. And I mentioned I was not ahead of myself, but I mentioned be on the lookout for a major announcements during the summit.
Yeah.
What's interesting about this is they decided to announce it ahead of the summit. Why?
Yeah.
Because by the end of July, it's going to be a summit between Russia and Africa.
Yeah.
Russia and Africa. That's the summit.
By the way, remember you were talking about this when we were talking about the Wagner Group. Where else is the Wagner Group very active?
Yeah.
Africa.
Yeah.
And we were talking about the relationships. So the relationships between, like, the relationships that are sort of under the radar that we don't really know about that actually are making a really big difference. So it's very interesting. I just want to point out that you said that. You brought that up, David.
I remember that one back then. And this is why it's important, because now we're going to look at those countries that precipitating. Well, they're not going to want to wait till the summit. The summit, why they're going to mention it in the summit officially?
Yeah.
Because as you may know, for every organization or economic bloc, like things will have to go through a certain protocol, entered into the books, it's official policy and so on. The fact that 41 countries already expressing that they're going to do this.
Yeah.
The next thing that comes to my mind.
Whoa.
What happened?
I don't know. We lost you.
Oh, I'm still here. They can hear me. They know my
here?
face. Yeah, they know my face.
Wow. That's crazy. We shouldn't have lost you.
That's all right.
We got you back.
Don't you worry about it.
Well, they can still hear you.
Yeah,
Keep on going.
Yeah. So the idea is, first of all, I want to say thank you to I want to say thank you to a lover of the Russian team. Thank you very much for your super sticker. Truly, truly appreciate it.
Can you grab me another battery?
Oh, the battery went dead.
It did.
Oh, well, it happens.
You know, guys, we are...
Things happen.
Things happen.
Hey,
we are a small team.
Yeah, we don't have millions of dollars budget.
Yep. All right, David, keep on talking while I do this real quick.
Sure. So the idea, what I was saying, is now that they are moving into with this gold backing it up. And again, I'm not surprised at this. My next thing will it be just gold? It will be another assets, hard assets. This is where I see the role of, for example, rare earth elements.
Absolutely.
Because it makes more sense. Certain countries, for example, in Africa, they have massive deposits of uranium, for example.
Yeah.
You got massive deposits of zinc. You got cobalt. You got hard assets. So what is going to become clear to many countries around the world, which already is, I'm just not. It's
There we
already
go.
is the idea that hey, we're done with this dollar thing. Why?
Yeah.
Because we weaponize it far beyond what we could even imagine. So that is where the issue, I believe, is.
Yeah. There we go, David.
There we
You're
are.
back.
Yeah. So that is where I see why
Yeah.
they went ahead and mentioned that they let information like this be out.
Right. And I think you're absolutely right. And it's been interesting because trying to find where this information came from has been interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that because it's never as easy as the news makes it out to be, right?
Of course.
It's never, you're like you were saying, it's never as easy as just, oh, the whole world's going to de-dollarize at once. No, this is a chess game in its own right. And so did you mention the countries?
No, not
Okay.
yet.
So we have the countries that have shown interest in joining BRICS, right? So we have Afghanistan, Algeria, Argentina, Bahrain, Bangladesh, Belarus, Egypt, Indonesia, Iran, Kazakhstan, Mexico, Nicaragua, Nigeria, Pakistan, Saudi Arabia, Senegal, Sudan, Syria, the UAE, Thailand, Tunisia, Turkey.
Wow.
Turkey,
Yeah.
Uruguay, Venezuela, and Zimbabwe. And remember, France is actually also interested, not in joining, but in peripherally being around, I guess. But what's interesting about this is, so a big part of what's happening here has to actually do with the new development bank.
Mm-hmm.
And so the new development bank in its own right is sort of an answer to the IMF. Yeah. What I don't know, the IMF has a really bad reputation, which it has gained over many years because somehow magically the countries that deal with the IMF tend to have some really big monetary crises.
And more debt.
And their governments collapse somehow magically and the country's bankrupt. I don't know how. I can't imagine how that happens.
And this is why some African countries and others, like for example, Argentina in this case, but just to give an example, this is why the kind of countries in Africa realizing it's now or never.
Right.
So, and the reason being because a lot of us Americans do not realize or understand the dynamics of IMF and World Bank. So anytime we raise interest rate, it's gonna hit them hard, because the interest on the loans that they have. This is why in Argentina's case, I was very familiar with it because I followed it through from way back in the 80s. That's when the first loan came in. And when they got the loan, they fixed whatever, but it wasn't fixed because now they only turn it around and have to pay the interest on it. So this time around, the Argentinians were against the government. Yeah. And yet, believe it or not, Argentina didn't respect the wishes of the people. They went ahead and agreed to another loan. That's why they're stuck now with a $45 billion in debt. Yep. Why? Because the interest. Africans do not want to do that anymore.
They've been doing it for a long time. You're absolutely right.
And this is why this opportunity of the BRICS with gold, Africa, what is Africa known for? Beside oil, uranium, sort of the rare earth element, there's also gold. Yep. I mean, this brings me to talk about briefly here, not too much, but about France. Yeah. And here is why. Yeah. France just disclosed that it has so much gold in its coffers. Now, here is the question. Yeah. France does not have any gold mines in France. So where the gold came from?
Where did it come from? Well, it came from Africa.
Africa, mainly. Yeah. Mainly from Africa. So it becomes now the question of, with the BRICS moving into this direction, you're going to be wondering about how the global financial system it's going now to take up, as we do about face in the military.
Well, and that's what's happening, right? So I have the new head of, I guess the head of the new development bank.
For the BRICS.
So I have actually an interview here with her talking about the intention to decrease by to de-dollarize by 30%.
Wow. Yeah.
And I want to say something actually very important about these countries, because the economies of these countries. So let's see. So what she says is the short-term goal is to offer 30% of NDB loans in local currencies. That would increase from its present rate of 22%.
Yeah. And you know why? Why in local currencies? Because they don't have to be dealing too much with the interest.
Right.
No. And by the way, the name of that person is Rousseff.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yes.
Dilma Rousseff. She used to be the former president of Brazil.
Yep.
So that is the reason why she's offering in the local currency. There is another reason.
Okay.
Because, as you may recall, the new president of Brazil, Lula da Silva, what is he calling for? A unified currency in Latin America called Alsoar. But with one condition, there will be unified currency, but countries will maintain their currencies.
Yeah.
The Alsoar currency will only be used in the trades.
Yeah.
So that's which is smart move, unlike what the EU.
I was going to say that exactly. Unlike what the EU did, because there are a lot of the difference in economies in these countries, and the same is true for Latin America, and the same is true for the BRICS countries. The difference in economies is so substantial that I have questions about how this currency is going to be put together. But that's the only thing that makes sense, because when you had the euro across all of the, not all, but the euro across most of the European countries.
No, it's
those economies really struggled, and a lot of them couldn't balance themselves out because that was the case.
And it became evident during the Greece financial crisis.
Greece specifically,
and again, we're just highlighting this. I do remember reading a column. Somebody said, "Well, you don't like Greece, whatever." That's nonsense.
What?
Yeah, it was pathetic. So I don't hold back about this stuff. You guys know this about me by now. I don't hold back for any stupid comments. I'll push back again because it was stupid.
Yeah.
I brought this up to highlight the idea that you got in the EU, you got countries with economies like Greece right here. Then you got the economy of Germany right here. But the financial aspect is tied in them together. This is now why Macron made the statement about the EU need to start to reconsider pulling away from the dollar. In other words, we don't want to be too tied to the US dollar, because they are finding out with the sanction US imposing on other countries, France is losing business. So that is the reason why Macron said this. And that was the whole reason for the whole BRICS thing, why he mentioned BRICS.
And I actually appreciate that you brought up sanctions, because the weaponization of sanctions, I think, went too far. I think that's a big reason there's a giant push to de-dollarize. I mean, there's several reasons, but a big push to de-dollarize has happened because sanctions have been weaponized. And that's a problem. And so interestingly about this particularly. So the 5 BRICS members represent more than 40% of the global population, right? Which is substantial in its own right. And their share of the world economy, when measuring in purchasing power, though, specifically, purchasing power polarity is larger than that of the G7.
PPP. Yeah, indeed.
So we're really looking at some real power here. Now, it's more complicated because, decoupling, we're here in the United States, we're talking about decoupling being a problem for the United States from China, but it's not just a problem for us. It's a problem for them too.
Not as much. It won't be as much for China as it will be for. Because here's the question. I'm going to ask you the question. Who needs whom the most? Do we need China or China needs us more? So what do you think?
Here's what I think. Because I do absolutely believe that there are other markets for China to go into.
Yes, there are.
Absolutely. The issue with that is that the United States is still the largest economy.
That's true.
And so that is a process that probably needs to take a lot of time and can't just happen immediately,
You're absolutely correct.
And so I think that's kind of a big piece of that is that it can't happen immediately. But over time, if there are smart investments in other economies, because right now, we talked about India. Let's say that China is looking for that economy in India. Is it going to find it? Not right now.
No, because India does not have the infrastructure
They
the
don't.
need. No, they don't. And that's why even for India, I think some analysts, like for example, the his name for Zakaria, journalist or whatever, worked for
Yeah.
CNN, and he was an India advocate because he's ethnically
Right.
from India, so which is fine, nothing wrong with that.
Mhm.
It's just he's been calling too much on, oh, India's going to become superpower. Now he proved that he was way off,
Right.
way off.
Not yet.
No,
India might
Yeah.
very well become a superpower, absolutely, but there's some really
But it's
critical
gonna take-
issues that
yeah.
have to be addressed first.
Yeah, that's why I did that research on it.
Yeah,
It's because we have to highlight. You gotta call it the way
absolutely.
it is.
Absolutely.
We need to refrain from saying, "Well, India's going to become a superpower." Come on, guys.
Right.
Because the elements for a superpower country
Mhm.
are not there yet.
Not yet.
Like you said, doesn't mean India cannot be.
Right.
Till they resolve their internal dynamics,
Right.
which they got a lot to deal with. You got a malnutrition, you got poverty, you
Yeah.
got a lack of infrastructure,
Yeah.
running water in certain places. Then we can be talking about
Right. And quality control with the goods that are already being made.
Yeah.
Would you like to listen to the head of the NDB talk about de-dollarization? Yeah.
Rousseff. Great.
So this is actually interesting to me because, they're talking about this is being openly talked about. Where this isn't actually openly being talked about is here in the United States. No one, now it's starting to get talked about because the focus on de-dollarization has been so severe that it doesn't matter how much legacy media may want to sweep this under the rug, they're not going to be able to. So Dilma Rousseff.
At the same time, it is necessary to find ways to avoid foreign exchange risk and other issues, such as being
Dilma Rousseff
on a single currency, such as the US dollar. The
right,
good news is that we
hear
are
her or not.
countries choosing to trade.
We can't hear her, David.
At the same time, it is necessary
No.
to
Can
find
you
ways to
hear her?
avoid foreign exchange risk and other issues, such as being dependent on a single currency, such as the US dollar.
All right, guys, let me know if
The
you
good news
can
is
hear
that
her.
we are seeing many countries choosing to trade using their own currencies. China and Brazil, for
here, I
instance,
can read it
are
out loud.
agreeing. At the
So she
same
says,
time,
at the
it is
same time,
necessary
it's
to find
necessary
ways
to
to
find
avoid
ways to
foreign
avoid
exchange risk
foreign
and other
exchange
issues,
risks and other
such as being
issues, such as
dependent
being
on a single
dependent on a single
currency, such
currency,
as the US dollar. The good news is
The
that
good
we
news
are
is that
seeing
we'll
many
see
countries choosing to trade using their own currencies. China and Brazil, for instance, are agreeing to exchange with RMB and the Brazilian real.
and the
At the
Brazilian real.
NDB, we have committed to it in our strategy. For the period from 2022 to 2026, NDB has to lend 30% in local currency, and so 30% of our loan book will be
has lent 30%
and so
in
30% of our loan book will be financed in the
will be
currency
financed in
of
the
our member
currency of our
countries.
member countries.
That will be
That will be
extremely important to help our countries avoid exchange rate risks and
and
shortages
shortages in finance that hinder long-term
investments.
investments.
At the same time, it is
She's spot on because I mean, it's no secret and it's nothing new.
Mhm.
We've abused the power
Yeah.
that we gained after World War II, especially in the financial system. And that's why the whole Bretton Woods system was set up that way.
Mhm.
And the arrangement was made with other countries to back the dollar. There
Yeah.
was still, of course, the 1971. As you all know the story, we're not going to go into the details of it when we stepped out of the gold.
Yeah.
But we made the arrangement. What a lot of people do not know, they were backdoor conversations with the Saudis at that time to ensure that we're going to step out of the gold, but you're going to step in with selling the oil in the US dollar.
Yeah.
And since Saudis were the head of the OPEC, not the head, but the linchpin in the OPEC, it was very, very interesting to see those dynamics. And now, when you see Saudi Arabia is included among those countries, it tells you where things are headed.
Hugely so. And sorry, guys, it looks like you guys actually could hear it.
Perfect.
Sorry about that. If you want to go read it again, you can.
That's all right. So, and this again, tie it to, this is why I always say geopolitics, things don't happen in a vacuum in geopolitics.
Absolutely.
You look at now, for example, in Africa, and what I'm thinking about it. You look at in Africa, why NATO now is fixing its sights on the Sahel area.
Yeah.
Why? Because they're rich in
Yeah.
oil and rare earth elements.
Well, and this is something that you bring up all the time,
Yeah.
David. If you're looking at what's happening in geopolitics,
Yeah.
you want to look at what resources are in whatever country that is.
Yeah.
What resources are they, or what access to resources does it provide?
Yeah. Well,
And
that was
that-
the whole reason why we always went to conflicts. It wasn't about,
Right.
but because time has come, as I always say, it pains me to say this because it's my country.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No matter what, it's my country. But on the other hand, you can't close your eyes
Right.
on what's wrong. So when the country,
Absolutely.
when my country, when the government, not the people,
Yeah.
American
not the
people are
yeah.
wonderful people.
Yeah.
It's like any other human being. It just we get lumped into what the government does because the
Yeah.
government represents us.
Yeah.
Well, wait a minute.
Sort
I
of.
am not advocating for you, the government, to go
Right.
and you look at yesterday I was hearing, I don't know if you guys know the journalist Max Blumenthal.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I listened to his speech at the UN and the disclosure of the waste of money. And he was right. He said, it's
Yeah.
my tax dollars.
Yeah.
When I see the infrastructure at home, it's not taken care of, and yet we squandering our tax dollars.
Yeah.
So he's right. And yes, you will get those schmuck in Washington DC pushing against his narrative. He's speaking the truth.
Mhm.
That's what I call a good citizen.
Yeah.
It's the idea that we call a spade, as I always say. When our country does wrong, and we did wrong with the abuse of the dollar, the power that we generated through that.
Yeah.
I mean, I looked at it just my recent trip. I had to purchase something and I looked at the transactions that had to go through the US dollar.
Yeah.
So why am I buying an item, for example, for $50, but I end up having to pay about $55?
Mhm.
So where the other $5 came from? Is that fee to convert this currency from here to here through the US dollar? Why? So the abuse of it. And that's why you're seeing now the BRICS moving forward. I saw this coming back then when I said, Mike, my word on it. In the summit, they're going to announce something major.
Yep.
And what I was referring to without saying it at that time had to do with currency.
Yep.
Why? Because you see the signs for all that.
Well, and currency is the most important form of power, right? So there are several forms of power.
Mm-hmm.
The deal with that is, so, you have the power that's like physical power, armies, police, that kind of thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can buy every other type of power with money. And so when we're looking at what's happening in the world, we're always looking at an economic struggle at the core of just about everything. Because what is the thing that people who want power want? Money.
Money. Yeah.
So of course, the most important thing is currency.
Yeah.
And even when you look at natural resources, why do people want natural resources? Is it for the good of all humanity?
No.
They want it because it means money.
Yeah. Well, the financial sector has always, since I start studying political science and international affairs and all that stuff, even all the books that I read from way back, all of them had that hint to the financial aspect. Why? Because the financial aspect is one of the pillars for geopolitics. Geopolitics is not about just the geography of a country and how it's going to interact with country B. Yes, it's all good and all that.
Yeah.
But you still have to look at the financial aspects of where things are headed. And this is one thing we did after World War II. Because strategists at that time in Washington, that was the focus on the financial, because we realized back then, and again, I am talking based on the record that I read. I did the research on all that stuff. Back then, the discussion was, okay, now we defeated the Nazis. Okay, now we have Europe under our thumb. Now we have the Monroe Doctrine in Latin America. Now we can coordinate with the Brits in the Southeast Asia and Africa. How are we gonna manage all this? You got one thing that can connect all this together. Is the financial aspect.
Absolutely.
And that's where that conversation took place at the Bretton Woods in Massachusetts about Bretton Woods, the dollar, the role, and so forth. Then, of course, with the discovery of oil, we realized discovery for other countries that we had the technology. They had, of course, the products. So we said, sure,
Yeah.
we'll explore this for you for 50%. And later on, we said, sure, we'll be happy to provide updates to your refineries and all that, in one condition, that you sell the oil on the international market using the dollar.
Yep.
So I believe this Ukraine conflict precipitated now the shift, and the dollar is going to get hit.
Yeah.
I mean, for Janet Yellen to say the de-dollarization process is going faster.
And it really
is. It is.
This is a great segue into our second topic of the day.
Oh, Janet Yellen.
Janet Yellen is going to China.
Yeah,
so Secretary
she's there
of
already.
the U.S. Treasury.
I saw this morning.
So
she landed, but here's the thing, quickly before sorry to interrupt here, but she was by herself when she landed.
That's
I saw
interesting.
the image.
Yeah.
Like I always say, in international relations,
yeah,
context matters.
Yeah.
You know, wasn't Presidency waiting for her?
Oh no,
which would be like crazy. So yeah, let's talk about that. Why is she going there for?
All right.
In your opinion,
okay.
What do you think?
So we had some interesting snafu after Blinken went.
Of course.
Do you remember what that was? So after Secretary Blinken went, let's see, and let me see if I can find the quote. So Secretary of State Blinken went in mid-June, and he did meet with President Xi Jinping. Okay, here's the issue. When he got back,
no, he did meet with Xi. He did meet with Xi.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yeah, he did meet with him.
Did, yes.
Okay, but what I'm saying is when he got back, President Biden called President Xi a dictator. And I just cannot. I cannot. I cannot. Because even, there are things that you just, whether you think them or not, you don't say them out loud. So this is one of those things. President Biden, you don't say it out loud. Diplomacy is about, diplomacy, even in relationships, no matter who you are, there are certain times when you keep your thoughts to yourself. And this is one of those times.
That's true. I do have a theory about that statement.
Okay.
There are only two, at least in my opinion. And again, this is my opinion. I could be wrong, but two things. Either Biden didn't know what he was saying.
Which is possible.
Or second, this shows that Biden had no intention of changing U.S. policy towards China. That's the only two options. I've been around in my head around it.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I've really been wrapping my head around it to say to myself, why on earth, in a diplomatic setting, you will go here, you want to reach out to a country, you want to figure out the differences and all that stuff, and you go in and provoking the because that's a provocation, basically.
Absolutely.
And I thought of those two possibilities. That's the only thing I could
You're absolutely right.
So
I think it is literally the only possibility is one of those two things. And it could be either thing. Because we know that Biden has actually gone, on air, press conferences and all of that, and said things that the White House press corps has, or the White House
spokesperson.
Thank you for reading my mind just then. The White House spokesperson has had to come back and say, just kidding. He didn't actually mean that. So sorry. That's happened a decent amount of times.
And usually in international relations, words tends to turn into policy. There is no for her or him to say, oh, we're just kidding here. There's no such thing. The statement already went out. So you call in, because it's also be interpreted as provocation. As a matter of fact, I did read the statement from the Treasury Department. That's what I always say.
Right.
I always say statements, reading the statements or reading the, what do you call it? The communique after a summit. They always give you an insight about policy. And what I read was the reason why Janet Yellen is going is to continue the dialogue for fixing the relationship. I'm paraphrasing here. Fixing a relationship with China. How the heck can you do that when you are doing this here and undermining or sabotaging the relations right here?
Right.
And that's why I don't see. Actually, I was even thinking. I thought that China would not agree to the meeting at all.
I was surprised. Yeah, I also was surprised, but I do think you're right. So I think that China actually also sees that it is very important to at least attempt to have this type of dialogue.
Yeah.
Like, it is important to at least attempt it, because the economies of China and the United States, whether you want to believe it or not, are not you, but in general, right? Whether people want to believe it or not, are actually very tied together.
Yeah.
And so and the de-dollarization really is happening. I mean, that's not a joke. That really is happening. And so, and I don't know. I don't know if this has to be true, but the rest of the world has to look at the president of the United States right now and say, not the people who have been fed the narrative that he's so great and going to save everybody.
Yeah.
But the real political leaders in the world.
Retire. Let alone they just found cocaine in the White House. So
what is
which to me, you know what it's all about here now? That the integrity, listen to this carefully, guys, is the integrity of the presidency as an institution. It's gone.
Yeah. Well, I think it left kind of a while ago, don't you think?
Yeah. But we all know, you go back to the Clinton era.
Yeah.
That office doesn't belong to those individuals. That belongs to the people.
Yeah.
But the integrity of the presidency as an institution.
Yeah.
Oops, it's gone.
Absolutely.
So for a president to be saying, call him a dictator or not,
right?
Maybe in your private conversation with him, you might want to, but you don't go on the international stage. Then you send in your Secretary of Treasury. And this is why I was surprised. I was thinking that China's gonna cut it off. But when I checked for one thing, believe it or not, I checked for one thing about the official statements from Beijing confirming the trip. That's what gives me the idea that they are okay with her coming. I was surprised.
Yeah.
I said, because what would you, let's just play a role play here. If I am to be abusive to you verbally, why would you even want to have a conversation with me?
Right.
Why would you want to even sit down and have a talk with me?
Right.
To me, I look at it this way. But again, like what the CIA director said last night in London, decoupling is nonsense.
It's nonsense. Absolutely.
So
it's absolutely
he's
nonsense.
a CIA director. He will have key information plus intelligence communities do have a conversation behind the scenes.
They do. Well, and he went to China, remember? He went to China very recently.
Yeah. And he used to be ambassador.
Right.
Then. But the idea of the statement from the Treasury Department saying that Janet Yellen is going to continue the conversation, it's baloney.
Right.
It's nonsense. She's going there for 2 or 3 main reasons. That's the only thing I see. And again, I could be wrong. One of them, you mentioned it.
Yeah.
It's about pulling U.S. companies out of China.
Right.
Good luck with that.
Right.
The reason I'm saying this and why I stand with my what's the word I'm looking for? I draw a blank. My conviction.
Yeah.
Who went to China about 3 weeks ago? Tim Cook.
Who else? Elon Musk.
Elon Musk.
Yeah.
Evil Bill one later, but that's Evil Bill. We don't worry about that one. We'll think about Tim Cook and Elon Musk. Go ahead, let it out.
No, let it out. So it actually, China hosting the World Economic Forum recently.
The summit, yes.
And Bill Gates going and Presidency saying old friends to him. That
they go way back.
I know, but what I can't tell is where that line is, because I think it's very clear at this point that the World Economic Forum is not out for the best interest of the people of anywhere.
That's true.
Right? They're just not. The you'll own nothing and be happy by 2030.
Will that include China, in your opinion?
Well, and that's my question. I don't have an answer to that. But I think it is based on the fact, right?
Yeah.
Did they pull? Because the Davos crowd is the cross section of humanity that runs everything.
That's correct.
They run all the major corporations. They run what we eat, where we live, what we do, what
That's
we
true.
consume, what we think,
What we own.
If
we ever.
right?
Yeah,
The big banks, all of it.
You're
They're
right.
the ones. And, we think, oh, it's just government. Oh, it's just government. But it's not. Government is not who sets the majority of policy, especially here in the United States. But that's true in other countries too. And so you're looking at a situation where China is being particularly friendly to the World Economic Forum,
Mhm.
which we know, you can call them evil or whatever, which I think is possibly appropriate,
Uh-huh.
but they're out for their own best interest.
Yeah.
And they're certainly not out for ours.
Okay.
But
Mm.
why is China so close or getting closer to the World Economic Forum? Why is Bill Gates, is that relationship, and the reason he called him old friend because, because of Microsoft?
Well, yeah, because what they did in China economically back then, Microsoft.
Right.
Yeah. But I think the
is
picture
it
is
philanthropy? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I see your point. But you gotta think about it, the big picture also. China also thinking about what's in it for China.
I get that, right?
And here is the thing, because
Yeah.
the question to why World Economic Forum will go to China but not the US. That's an also you could look at it on
That's
the
a great
opposite
question.
spectrum
Yeah.
as to the reflection of the new geopolitical landscape.
Mhm.
The global order is already shifting or has already shifted
Yeah.
with China being at the head.
Right.
Could it be that the decision for the Davos summit to be in China but not the US
Yeah.
is a reflection of that? That's a possibility to it. The other thinking is that could it be also that the World Economic Forum, despite, I care less for that. Actually,
I'm
to me, it's
really
no,
big,
no.
not a fan.
But when we think about who's managing that, most of the economy of who controlled the resources and so forth,
Right.
are they seeing that China, not the United States, is where the economic fortunes come in? And that's why they did that.
Well, I agree with you. And I think that is the question.
And for China, that's why they did it, because it's all about optics.
But it's at the cost of what? And it's interesting. And guys, correct me if I'm wrong, but David, isn't Vladimir Putin a World Economic Forum young leader?
He was there. He attended events, but he won't be the likes, to my knowledge, the likes of Justin Trudeau or Emmanuel Macron or the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Jacinda Ardern, or even the former Prime Minister of Finland, Sanna.
Yeah.
Yes, he was there, but he wasn't. They realized that's why Putin snapped back at the World Economic Forum about a year and a half ago.
Yeah.
I read the statement.
And I did too.
I read the statement.
And so what I can tell is this, okay? Because, people are like, oh, I don't know about that. I don't think it's that complicated. Human relationships, especially in politics and money, business, are very complex. And it's so easy to say, oh, it's not possible that people are conspiring together to achieve certain goals in the world. What?
No, they are.
That's humanity. That's basic human behavior to do that.
That's true.
I mean, you look at any group of people and what are they doing?
Yeah.
They're conspiring basically to have their own best interests met. And this isn't everybody. There are really good people in the world, but the really good people in the world. So there's Walmart, for example. I was talking to someone and they were telling me that that Walmart has a part of their training that talks about how to apply for food stamps, because there are so many people here in the United States who literally have full-time jobs and cannot afford to buy food. They work full-time. Walmart knows this is happening. Is that someone who has the best interest of their employees at heart? Yeah. While, that company is making billions in profit.
Yeah, that's true.
And so you look at these large corporations, you look at how degraded our food is, all over the world, but certainly here in the United States. And in its own right, companies tried to make food cheaper. Yeah. They tried to make it as cheap as possible. Yeah. And so in making it as cheap as possible, they also made it not very fit for human consumption, certainly for human health.
You're right.
And so you're looking at a group of people who don't have people's best interest. They don't have humanity's best interest at heart. They have their own best interest at heart. And so what I don't know is, what is the game? Is it that Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping really are, against the World Economic Forum, and it's like, keep your friends close and your enemies closer? Or is it something that they're working together and making it look like they're not? I don't have an answer to that.
No.
But I think the question is worth considering, and it's worth thinking about.
Now you see why I grow my own veggies at home.
Absolutely.
Now, to go back to that point, which was spot on, is the idea of, I'll give you two examples. Wall Street and BlackRock.
Absolutely.
When you talked about Wall Street and BlackRock, so that's the idea. For presidency, President Putin, are they coordinating whatever? Yes, they are coordinating, and they are coordinating. They are coordinating for this new global order. That it's not going to benefit just Russia, just China, but rather the rest of the world in a different settings, because each country has its own resources. That is where it's going to be different. The way I see it. That's why I said, and I still stand by my conviction, that the new multipolar system will be based on economic blocks. Not ideology, not finance, not this, not that. It's the economic blocks that's going to define. So what they found themselves, Russia and China, what they found themselves is they have a common objectives, common enemy, of course, but a common objectives. And that objective is economics. That's why I believe, I could be wrong, as one who did the research on Russia and currently doing the research on China, I am seeing both indications leading to that, for them to coordinate their effort. This is why now you see an uptick into the military alliance between the two. They don't have an official military alliance, but there is moving slowly.
Well, and you're absolutely right. They outright have said we are partners, and China's outright said we support Russia, except in Ukraine we support Russia, right? Because they can't come out and say,
well, actually, because Russia. China wants to stay neutral. It's no different than what India did. It's no different than, even, for example, voices inside Malaysia, inside Indonesia, inside Singapore. I'll take the example of Singapore. Singapore has sanctioned Russia, but deep down, they're friends with Russia. Makes you just wonder, were they pressured? And this is where that's why I'm thinking about, like I said to Ross yesterday, maybe we need to think about Singapore and bring up, because that's our objective for this show here. Is to bring up issues to the forefront.
Who has massive wealth stored in Singapore in a similar way to how Swiss banks are operated?
The US.
Where else?
China has some. But not as much as the US.
Well, the US
actually, because it was some laundry. It was laundry money investigations about 2.5 decades ago or so. I read up on it, going through Singapore. And as a matter of fact, as the FBI got involved, and certain deals were cut behind the scenes. That's why I didn't hear much about it. And all that. So
which is usually how that works, right? We think we get all the information. We absolutely
no, we don't.
not.
So it's no different than what took place in Indonesia and Malaysia. So, but that's topic for another day. So to go back to why Janet Yellen is going to China. So there are those, like you mentioned, said, well, she's going to have to push the U.S. Companies to move out. Good luck with that. There are two other main things. And I will use the term begging. Usually I won't use it lightly. But begging on two ends, not just for one thing, begging for two things. And those two things are begging for money, of course.
Loan. Loan money.
But begging for China not to sell U.S. treasuries. Because we've been selling it like crazy. And the key to that.
And that's a big problem.
Very big
problem.
Average Joe, average Jane here has no idea
or that it's even happening.
Yeah.
They have no, because the last thing that people heard is
Yeah.
China's buying up all the treasuries, right?
Yeah.
That's the last big thing that was talked about here is, oh, China's buying up all the treasuries. Nobody's talking about them selling them.
Yeah. And the key thing to that is China's doing it in a way that's selling them and turning it right away and converting it to gold.
Yeah.
And this is nothing new.
Nope.
That's what led me to conclude about the BRICS currency backed by the gold, because you see in other elements or other what's the word I'm looking for? Changes.
Yeah.
Taking place. It's like a puzzle. You
It
put
is.
it together.
Yes.
So that's what
Yes.
China
It's
did.
like
What
a
it
puzzle.
did
Yeah.
is to. Well, I think that's why. I'm sorry. That's why Janet Yellen is going to back for those two things. You know.
So interestingly enough, I have some stats.
Yeah.
So this is People's Bank of China extended its gold buying spree for a 7th straight month with a 16-ton addition to its official reserves. So this is from Zero Hedge. Since recommencing reports of purchases in November 2022, the People's Bank of China has added 144 tons to its official gold holdings. Officially, Chinese holdings stand at 2,092 tons. Chinese central bank accumulated 1,448 tons of gold between 2002 and 2019. Then suddenly went silent.
Yeah.
Who knows what it was doing during that time.
Mhm.
And resumed its reporting. Not purchasing. We don't know what they were doing during that time. Resumed its reporting in November 2022. Many speculate that the Chinese continued to add gold to its holdings off the books during the silent years.
Well, most countries
right?
do that, not just China. I mean, you look at France now declaring they have more in gold.
Oh, Poland too. Yeah. Poland is actually who bought the most gold, or who purchased the biggest amount of gold.
I was about to say, bought it or took it.
Well, it says they bought it, so we'll see. But they added 19 tons to their reserve in May.
Yeah.
What what do these countries know that the rest of everybody doesn't?
The other thing also has to do with this guy. Jerome Powell, the head of the Feds. Why Janet Yellen is going there? Because she knew that he's going to increase interest rate by the end of July.
Yeah.
Then the launch of the CBDC, the central bank digital currency,
which most people here in the United States do not want. They do not want it because the potential for misuse for a central bank digital currency is so substantial.
But no matter what they say, some of us Americans are just oblivious to. We can just say whatever till they act on it. Nothing's gonna.
Yeah.
Most of us Americans are we go with whatever the wind is taking. You look at now what's going on. Do they even have a grasp of what's taking place?
No, absolutely not. But, you talk about this all the time, David. The population of many parts of the world, it's not just here, but especially the Western world, is very distracted.
By design.
By design. Absolutely. People are distracted. They're very unhealthy. The systems here are absolutely crumbling. It's a huge mess.
Well, thanks to the Ukraine.
Well, that's
distraction.
That's a great segue into the next one.
Indeed. Let's talk about that one.
Wagner Group. Okay.
Yes. Wagner.
Yes. So
was there an attempt coup, or was it?
You asked this question when we did that episode.
I remember. Yeah.
And that was, is it really that there was a coup?
Yeah.
Or was this strategy?
Yeah.
Because Belarus is closer to Kyiv. You asked that question.
That's correct.
Let's see. I'm gonna find these pictures, but now that's more of a reality than I think anyone would have admitted before.
Yeah. Well, because it happened so fast that nobody was seeing this coming. And that's usually in the intelligence world. That's how things happen.
Okay, so here we have BBC. So the BBC, so this is a current. I mean, it's BBC, right? So trust whatever you want.
Yeah.
Okay, but I'm putting out what's on here, okay? So this is a satellite image that appears to show activity at a disused military base in Belarus amid speculation about Wagner forces relocating to the country. So, you can see tents here.
Mhm.
And this is an image, well, I because I didn't take these pictures, I cannot, stand for
Yeah.
the validity of them, okay? But this is that same base, this abandoned base, basically,
Mhm.
on June 15th, so last month. And you can see that there are no tents anywhere. And here is June 30th. So 15th, 30th. What are we looking at
Yeah.
here?
Wow.
So we're looking at basically tents. And what they're saying is
Yeah.
that there are 8,000 Wagner troops that they suspect in these tented
In those
areas
tents,
in this
yeah.
area.
Well, back then it was the conversation that there were 50,000 Russian troops in Belarus, quietly. Then after the so-called coup, that about 25 of Wagner will move to Belarus. So you add 25 to 50, that makes it about 75,000 troops. That means if they march to Kiev, which will make more sense strategically, because if you take over Kiev, it's over. It is already over.
Right.
I mean, all this hoopla we're hearing about emanating from the West, we're gonna keep supporting. As a matter of fact, it was yesterday somebody in Europe, I don't remember what exactly, giving a speech about how we must keep supporting Ukraine by providing weapons. Ukraine is gone.
Yeah.
It's destroyed.
Which is honestly horrible.
It's the narrative for political objectivity. That's why they do it, because of the objective of it is to always give that sense to the people, the population. Of course, the population that is what's the word I'm going to use, and I'm going to use it, brainwashed.
Yeah,
I'll use it. Usually, I don't like that term, but I'll use it because they are brainwashed in both ends, over the Atlantic and here.
Yeah.
So when they keep repeating the statements, but that was the idea back then.
Yeah.
Should these forces go to Ukraine, the Wagner that is, and join the other, then they can march and take over Ukraine. Once they take over Kiev, once they take over Kiev, it's over.
Yeah.
Whether it is not, I don't know. But the fact that Russia moved tactical weapons should be an indication right there.
Right.
And now you have Poland sending.
Right.
So makes you wonder again, why is Poland embarking on a suicidal policies? We were in Poland.
Yeah.
So people care less for their government over there. As a matter of fact, they don't even agree with what President Duda is doing.
Yeah.
They're like, what the heck are they wasting our tax dollars? It's no different than us, what we say.
Yeah.
I asked some Poles, and they're like, we don't quite get it.
Yeah.
Why are we sending, yes, it's a neighboring country. You help on all that, but how much can you help?
Right.
To a degree.
Well, and they've helped more than anyone else, really, because of the amount of refugees specifically that they've taken in, which I think is, you take care of people, right? You take care of your neighbor.
Yeah.
But they're a small country.
And not even rich.
They're not. They're not. Although
resources.
Very good people.
Yeah, they are.
But you're looking at a situation where Poland is being put in a precarious situation, because they're right there.
Yeah, but like I always say, if Europeans thinking that the US is going to come, they're mistaken.
Right.
The Poles going to be first.
Right.
The Eastern European countries going to first in front line.
Yeah.
This is no different than the case of Taiwan conflict. Should there be a conflict, don't ever think it will be the American first. It will be the Japanese. It will be the South Koreans and those Taiwanese who wants to. It's like, we're going to fight the China and so forth. US is not going to be there. It's no different. No. Some Polish people understand this reality, but it's the damn government.
Yeah. Yeah,
That's the
absolutely.
reality of it. This is why now you have the head of Hungary, Viktor Orban. You know, I just said yesterday, forget about giving more assistance to Ukraine. He's
Yeah,
challenging
yeah,
the EU. He's standing
absolutely.
on
Yeah.
his ground because the EU wants to shove down his throat the issue of immigration.
Yeah.
Hungarian people wants to keep their country. They're allowed to do what they want. You know,
Absolutely.
I'm not anti-immigration,
Yeah.
but heck, it's their country.
Right. You and I are both here because of immigration.
Yeah,
But
we all of us here.
But absolutely, you're absolutely right. It is their country, and they
Yeah.
can do whatever
Whatever
they want.
Well, now
with
the
it.
EU wants to impose on them, and
Right.
they're like, no, you admire a guy like that. It's not about him
Yeah.
supporting the Russia. What? No,
Right.
they do have a good relationship with it, and
Yeah.
he's a NATO member.
Yeah.
Orban, Hungary for that matter.
Mm-hmm.
But he's seeing the logic and what the pragmatism of the decisions.
Yeah.
Why should we give more money? Because that EU money, it's coming out of his budget also.
Right.
And he's like, what's in it for my people? And that's what a right leader
should do. Yeah.
Unlike ours. You keep it. Now they're going to send another $500 million. For what?
Well, because basically they said absolutely no peace. We're just going to keep doing more. And so what, when nobody else is going to finance it, right? Who is ultimately financing it, right? So we're talking about the proxy war between the United States and Russia.
I got an answer for you.
Yes.
That's why we go into China to borrow money. It's because most Americans do not know. You know the Iraq War? Mm-hmm. It was on credit card. And where the money came from?
Absolutely.
Where the money came from?
It was
China.
Yep.
We borrowed.
Yep. You're absolutely right.
That's what I'm saying. If they are writing a check, the White House writing a check for $500 million,
right? Send
her to China to borrow money and use it for that.
That's actually a really great point because these conflicts, where is the money coming from for them?
Exactly.
And we think, oh, it's just taxpayer money, but it's not because we just raised the debt ceiling again, right? So the debt ceiling, the debt ceiling's been raised and raised and raised and raised, right? But recently it's been raised so frequently and there is no concerted effort. There seems to be no actual political will to lower the budget.
Yeah. No, they won't.
So where is that coming from?
Yeah.
Where is that money coming from? You're absolutely right.
That's true. That's why always, and I've been looking at this since early 90s.
Yeah.
The defense budget, it always goes up. It will never go down. And this is why you're thinking about the decision of the government making something like this. Only to realize, because that's what I listened to that journalist, Max.
Yeah.
I mean, he was spot on. And I know the guy. I don't know him personally. I know about him as far as his integrity. He will not leave any stone unturned. That's it. That's what a real journalist does. That's what a real analyst does. So what he found out is that Blinken, Secretary of State, has already have a consulting firm that is tied with none other than the former press secretary speaker, just Jen Psaki. And that's why you're seeing certain things go in certain directions. Secretary of Defense, which sitting at the board of Raytheon.
Yep. Oh yeah, absolutely. So, if you look at those people, where did they come from?
Exactly.
And where did they go after?
Then you look at the Black Rock as far as, let's destroy the country. Then acquire the money to rebuild it. So.
And people actually threw a fit about that. When that came out, that BlackRock got the contracts to rebuild Ukraine, people woke up and really started paying attention to that. Because that is a very clear, I mean, I would say, conflict of interest.
Oh, big time.
Right?
This is no different than what we did back in Iraq. What we did is to be still Halliburton.
Halliburton, yeah.
You know Halliburton?
Yeah.
You know who was the head of Halliburton at that time?
No, I don't.
Dick Cheney, the vice president.
Oh, that's right.
So what they will do is they will buy. Okay? Get this. They will buy oil and sell it to the government at a 5-6 times the amount.
Anyone that's been in military that I've ever known who came out, one of the things they said that upset them the most was the waste.
Oh, I
that
saw
they
it.
watched
I saw it.
happen.
And I asked the question about it one time.
Yeah.
Well, it's the budget. That's the answer I got. So
Well, I've heard that many times.
Yeah, it's sad to see what has become of our country.
Yeah.
And this over time, and things we catch up. And this is why, just to recap back to our first topic, why now the new currency for the BRICS is going to push the world order, financially speaking, into a different direction, whether we like it or not.
Right.
And what it's going to do now is going to expose, especially for Americans, how much we are. The wealth is an illusion.
It's an illusion. You're absolutely right. Because for many reasons, but one of them is that the amount of debt and money printing, it's wealth that's built on a house of cards.
Yeah.
And we're watching it really start to fall as we watch our infrastructure crumble, as we watch our politicians basically sell us out, either to large corporations for corporate interests or to other, sending money to other countries, for example, when people here when really our country is in decline.
Yeah.
And you can go to any major city and watch it
happening. Yeah. And that's one thing we intend to address in the course.
Oh,
so we're gonna be talking about all those details, all of them.
Yeah,
it's because I feel people needs to know.
Yeah.
Now, what they're gonna do with the information, it's up to them.
Absolutely.
So you can, as we always say, you can lead a horse to a lake, but you can't make him drink.
Absolutely.
So that's the best we can do. So, well, I'll say let's take some questions if there are.
There, let's check it out. All right. So we have a bunch of Tom Hayuna became a YouTube member. So we have a membership, guys. A YouTube membership. When we get to 100 members, we're gonna do our first members live stream.
Yeah, exclusive.
Yes.
Q&A. We'll answer their question.
Lover of the Russian team.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Let's see, Mr. E Man. The I in BRICS should be Indonesia or Iran.
Yes, it came up a lot. That's just a brief comment on that. It has been a conversation about who is the dead weight in BRICS.
Yeah.
I'll let you guys. That's a question for you. Yeah. Who do you think is the dead weight in BRICS? And again, we're not pointing fingers here, but it's been a conversation that should Indonesia, because the economy of Indonesia, as a matter of fact, Australia is concerned about Indonesia because its economy is moving up.
Right.
And there are those, I've conversed with some, just normal conversations. They said, well, if we are to assess the contribution, they said Indonesia will do far more than India at this stage.
At this stage, yeah.
Because one thing we have to be certain of, India has a large market. You can ignore 1.4 billion consumers. Of course, there will be kids in general terms. So,
but over years, over decades.
Exactly. But overall, they're saying Indonesia will be much more effective in the BRICS, and BRICS doesn't have to change its name.
Well, it might have to change its name when there's a lot more new people.
Oh, for sure.
In it.
For sure.
Okay. Hong Luong. It's nice to see you.
Good to see you.
So Elizabeth, that is how the Chinese are. They use old friend is towards people they've known for a long time. She once called Biden my old friend. Okay, so that's interesting information, and I appreciate that. Yeah, it's culturally part of it. We have that here too, right?
Except I'll challenge you on that.
Okay.
We have it here.
Yeah.
But we use the term loosely. We call everybody my friend. I'm not your friend. I've heard it a couple of times. I was like, yes, but you don't know me that well.
But it also seems like that's actually what he's saying here too, is that it's used not necessarily for somebody who is actually an old friend, but somebody you've known for a long time.
Yeah.
And so, it's not really describing the complexity of the relationship. Like it's not describing what the relationship is. And please, Hong, correct me if that's if I understand that incorrectly. But and we do also have that here where it's like, oh, my old friend, that could be used as almost like a manipulation in its own way of like, oh, this is my old friend, or it could be used genuinely as,
because here's the thing. Do you think, and here's the question for you, do you think Presidency wasn't aware of what Evil Bill was doing in India with the injections for the kids, or whatever, polio, whatever that was doing? Do you think Presidency wasn't aware of what Evil Bill was doing in Africa? Or do you think they kicked Bill out of India?
Yeah.
When they started having kids born deformed and all that stuff,
Ooh,
I know.
No,
so
Bill
to me, it would
really...
be, if he used the term, because part of the culture that, because at least based on what I learned, most Asian countries, I have some Asian friends.
Yeah.
Still
Yeah.
today,
Me
talking
too.
about it.
Yeah.
Trust is a big deal.
Yeah.
It's a big deal. Once they open their door, their homes for you, that's a sign of how much they trust you.
Yeah.
You betray that trust.
Yeah.
It's over.
Well, I think that's appropriate.
I know. It's just for us, because just to tie it to these terms of friends, we tend to use it very loosely. Over in that part of the world, to my knowledge, they don't use it loosely that way. So.
All right.
That's it. No more questions.
Yes. Well, I mean, if there's so many in the chat. I cannot even possibly find it, guys. If you ever have questions,
become a member. They can become a member, and
absolutely,
the first 100 we're gonna do an exclusive Q&A, because we're gonna answer just questions. So just subscribe, guys, and become a member of the channel. We truly appreciate it. So, well, we hope you find this conversation, shall we say, enlightening, informative, whatever term you like. So, and we look forward to seeing you next time. As always, prepare yourself for changing world order. Till next time, guys.